Good evening and welcome. Tonight, we gather around an issue that touches every family, every classroom, and every community: the mental health and resilience of our children. At the Wellness Institute of Houston, we were founded to address a critical gap: the need for high-quality, evidence-based youth mental health education that speaks directly to Houston's Jewish and Jewish-adjacent communities. Our mission is simple but urgent: to nurture resilient youth and strengthen our community. What makes our approach unique is that we do not choose between modern psychology and Jewish wisdom. We combine cutting-edge research in adolescent development, attachment, and resilience with the depth, values, and spiritual strength of our tradition. The result is programming that is clinically sound, culturally sensitive, and deeply rooted in meaning. The Wellness Institute of Houston is a joint initiative of Chabad of West Houston and the Houston Friendship and Wellness Circle, born from collaboration and sustained by partnership. We believe that when organizations work together, stigma decreases, awareness grows, and support becomes stronger. Tonight's program is part of that larger mission. Whether you're a parent, educator, clinician, or community leader, you are not just attending an event. You are part of a movement to create a community where mental health is prioritized. Resilience is cultivated, and our youth are empowered not merely to cope, but to thrive. Please join me in welcoming Gittel Francis of the Jewish Family Services and also on the National Clinician Board of the Wellness Institute to introduce tonight's speaker.
Thank you. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. As Rabbi Goldstein said, my name is Gittel Francis, and I'm a psychotherapist at Alexander Jewish Family Service, as well as part of the Clinical Advisory Board of the Wellness Institute. A little Torah before we start. So this week's Parsha is Parshas Tetzaveh. And in Parshat Tetzaveh, Moshe is commanded to tell the Jewish people to bring pure, crushed olive oil for the Ner Tamid, the eternal flame that must never go out. This command is striking. The oil must be clear, pure, and crushed, and not for eating, not for comfort or perfume, but specifically for light. The Ner Tamid teaches us something essential about the human soul. The flame inside of us burns constantly. The Torah does not hide the fact that the oil is crushed. There are moments when we all feel pressure, overwhelmed, squeezed by expectations, emotions, or fears, and things we can't always explain. Pressure is real. Life can feel heavy. However, crushed does not mean destroyed. The olive is not crushed to disappear. It is crushed to reveal what is hidden inside. Essentially, it's hidden light. Inner pressure does not automatically mean something is wrong. Sometimes it means there is sensitivity, depth, empathy, and strength waiting to emerge. Light can come from heaviness. Growth can come from discomfort. Dr. Simpson's work focuses on anxiety disorder in children and adolescents. She will speak about pressure, and when met with understanding and support, it can reveal a child's inner light rather than extinguish it. The Parsha reminds us the flame is always there. Our job is to protect it and to tend to it. Dr. Simpson.
Hello, everybody. So maybe just before I get started, just a little raise of hands. Whose kids I'll be speaking to tomorrow? I know yours.
Aaron and Henry.
Great. Wonderful. So then you'll have some common language because I'll be presenting a lot of these things to the kids tomorrow as well, and then you can discuss it when they come home a little bit as well. So forgive me, I'm going to be putting these on and off because my eyes are not used to needing glasses. Oh, wait, I'm not doing that. See, I knew that was going to happen. like that. Okay, so who am I? I'm from Vancouver, Canada. I'm a registered clinical psychologist. I'm a dog mom. I'm a proud Zionist. I got the privilege of going with a bunch of mental health professionals last year to bear witness and to meet with some of the main psychologists who were involved in the hostages coming back and all the different trauma responses, which was a real privilege. Those are my children. I'm also a dance mom, which got a lot of, where do you mean you're leaving? Who's going to take me to dance? But I said, don't worry, I'll be back before the competition. Oh wait, again, I'm not following instructions. There we go. So not only am I a mom, I'm also an anxious mom, as lots of moms are. This is my daughter. She climbed to the top of this when she was 4, she's now 13, climbed to the top of this structure and screamed, "Ma, look at me!" And I turned around and went, "Oh!" And then she started to cry once she had seen my reaction. So I understand anxiety from the parental perspective as well, but I'm also a very anxious person. And I really, really, really do not enjoy doing new things. I find them very hard, and yet I do them anyway. So this was me doing something very, very challenging for me. So I have the anxiety perspective from lots of different angles. So I thought I would start with a little question, a little would you rather, because a lot of the kids love these would you rathers. Would you rather remove all stress and anxiety from your child's life, or would you rather raise a resilient child who can cope with hard things? So obviously everyone would love to be able to take away stress and anxiety from their kids' lives, all of it, but obviously that is not a realistic thing that we can do. And so we need to build our children up to have these skills to be able to cope with what life brings us. And as we know, over the last many years now, our children have been coping with a lot. Especially our Jewish children, from everything from the COVID and then all the way October 7th and the rise of anti-Semitism after that. So we need to build some skills in our kids so they can be resilient. Oh wait. I'm doing too many things. I think I'm not going to look at my notes. I'm only going to pay attention to this. So what is the job of a parent? You know, obviously we need to make sure our kids have food and are well taken care of, but we need to make sure that they're able to do the developmental tasks of childhood. What is childhood for? It's for, you know, going to school, getting educated. It's for building friendships and having meaningful friendships. We also, our job as a parent is to increase independence. We don't want them relying on us for the rest of their lives. We want them to launch out the door eventually. And so that is one of the goals of being a parent, as well as sleep, which is a very, very important thing that we want to make sure our children are learning the important skills of. Now, all kids do this at different rates, but we want to make sure that they're all going in the right direction. It's not a sprint, it's a marathon, but we want them taking one small step towards the goal of becoming a fully functioning adult. So what is anxiety? So anxiety is a very, very normal and important human emotion. I often have parents coming into my office and they were like, you have to do something about my child's anxiety. You have to take their anxiety away. And I'm like, I don't want to take their anxiety away because they need their anxiety. It's designed to motivate you and to keep you safe. So for example, you know, if you're about to walk off the curb and you see a car coming, you better feel anxious so you get out of the way. If you have a big test, you want your kids to feel a little anxious so they actually are motivated to study for it. You know, I've given 1 million talks. This is the first time that somebody has brought me from on an airplane to give a talk. I felt a little anxious, so I prepared. So we don't want to get rid of kids' anxiety. And one of the things that we have to teach children, and probably ourselves a little bit too, is that the experience of anxiety is very, very uncomfortable. Nobody likes feeling this way, but it's not harmful. It's not going to hurt you. And so kids often start to feel, especially when they're younger, they feel the stomach aches, they feel these things, the anxiety brewing, and they think there's something really wrong and they have to make this feeling go away. And we want to teach our kids that that experience, yeah, it's not great, but nothing really bad is going to happen from experiencing it. So anxiety can be a false alarm. This is our built-in survival system, and it's there to protect. Like I said, it keeps us safe. But sometimes this is too sensitive. And so the way I explain this to the kids tomorrow is I will say, Raise your hand if you have an alarm a fire alarm in your house, a fire detector. And everyone's like, yeah. And what's it for? Well, it's for if there's a fire to keep us safe. Well, has your fire alarm ever gone off when there was no fire? Yeah, but my dad was making grilled cheese the other day. You know, you get answers like that. It went off. But there was no fire? No. So what happened? It was too sensitive. It went off when there was no reason for it to go off. It was a false alarm. And so we talk to the kids about the fact that sometimes our bodies give us false alarms when there actually isn't something there to be afraid of. So anxiety is our smoke detector, but sometimes it goes off for toast. And so it's still really loud when that fire alarm goes off or the smoke detector goes off in your house. I know my dog hates it. It goes off a lot in my house. It's not a testimony to my cooking. But just because it's loud doesn't mean it's dangerous. So anxiety involves 3 parts. There's thoughts, feelings, and behaviors. And this triangle is, I think, one of the most super cool things that I teach kids, because what this means is you can change one part of this triangle and the other parts change too. They are all related. And so trying to change your feelings is really hard. So all you have to have is your partner tell you to relax. You'll know how hard that is to actually calm down when you're feeling, someone just says, change it. So I don't usually start with that or even address that at all. What's more powerful is changing the way you think, and even more powerful than that is changing the way you act. And when you behave a certain way, the thoughts and the feelings come along with it. And so what all of the things I try to teach kids is act as though, and we're going to talk a little bit about how to make that happen. Any questions so far? I tend to talk fast, but okay.
What age group are you addressing with this?
I am addressing all age groups with this, but tomorrow I'm addressing the high school students. But when I work with kids, I talk about these things with kids as young as 4 and as old as 20. And the only thing that changes is a little bit of the language. But I still say, you know, that feeling you have, even to the 4-year-old, it's, you know, it's scary, but it's not going to hurt you. So yes, I use the exact same skills, but I do it in a little more playful way with the younger ones. So obviously, you know, not all kids start in the same place. Kids come into the world a certain way. Genetics plays a role, learning plays a role. We talk about behavioral inhibition, which is a temperamental quality that kids are born with, where they're slow to warm up to new situations. You see it right away. Your kids come out, and some kids are like running towards this play structure, and others are more trepidatious, sort of like, what's going on here? So these things make a vulnerability to anxiety problems later in life. So yeah, life stressors, multiple life stressors also can contribute. So not all kids are starting in the same place. So just really quickly, I don't want to spend too much on this, but when is anxiety a disorder? Actually a problem versus the anxiety that all of us experience and all the kids experience. So normal anxiety is temporary. It's proportional to the situation. You know, you want your kid to be a little anxious on the first day of school or the first day of going away to sleepaway camp for the first time. That is a very normal experience. Situation specific, and life continues on. You start to have a little bit more worries when it's persistent, it's excessive, it goes above and beyond what other kids their age are experiencing in those times. That as the time goes on, they become more avoidant of things. They're joining in less, they're doing less, life shrinks for them. And so when we talk about anxiety becoming a disorder, when it's experienced more often, more intensely, and more interfering with a child's life. So for all anxiety, we talk about the anxiety trap. So, you know, you get a trigger of anxiety. So I'm going to just use myself, for example. I get this lovely email. Would I be interested in coming to Houston to do a talk? It took me, I'm going to be vulnerable for a second. It took me 1 to 2 seconds to be like, Houston, Texas, right, that's Texas. So I'm like, I can't fly across go to another country to do a talk. I've never done anything like that in my life. So I felt really nervous, right? So I had my trigger, my anxiety, and this is how anxiety, so for some people, not me, because I'm here, and I got all these great skills in my toolbox, they'll try to avoid the anxious situation. So for example, your child's supposed to go to summer camp. all their friends are going to summer camp, sleepaway summer camp, and your child says, Lemmy, I can't go, I can't sleep away from you, I just can't go, and they start crying and they're very upset, and so they try not to go, and they convince you, you know what, I'm not gonna, okay, my kid's not ready, I'm gonna keep my kid home with me this summer. So they avoid going, and what happens? They feel better, right? They feel better in the short term, you feel better in the short term. Nobody likes the experience of anxiety. The problem is then you have long-term anxiety developing because next summer comes around, they're still not ready. Nothing magical happened between one year to the next, and so they're still not ready to do it. The next time it comes around, they experience anxiety, they try to avoid the situation or escape it, and the cycle goes on and on and on and becomes more and more intense. So this short-term relief of something being taken away temporarily makes it more likely for that experience to continue on in the future. I work with a lot of kids with selective mutism, which is kids who are excessively shy, which is a word I do not like, to the extreme where they do not talk to new people. Every time somebody asks them a question, they shrink down, they don't answer, they look at their feet, they hide behind their mom, and someone jumps in to answer the question for them, and they feel better. Right? Because they didn't, dodge that bullet, didn't have to do it that time. But then the next time someone asks them a question, same experience. So we call that negative reinforcement. Something's been taken away that makes it more likely for the next time for it to happen again. So how do parents get pulled into this? So parents get pulled into the anxiety trap through the process of accommodations, right? Accommodations are changes that we do as parents to our behavior that have an impact of taking away our child's anxiety in the short term. Unfortunately, it reduces the distress right away, works really, really well. However, it increases the anxiety as time goes on. Now, I want to say for 1 second, this is not about blame. This is not about shame. This is what all parents do in some degree or another when their child is anxious. We are wired to jump in and make our kids feel better. Right? That is our job as a parent because we want to protect them, right? And that really made a lot of sense when it was a big tiger about to eat them. But like we talked about the false alarm, sometimes we're trying to protect them from things that are actually not dangerous. So I already said this. So they're designed to decrease anxiety, alleviate or avoid distress, reduce interference with daily activities. That's what accommodations are. So some examples. Speaking for your child. So I gave that example already. You know, you go to the store, what can I get you at the restaurant? And your child sort of looks like a deer in the headlights and you jump in with the answer. Letting them avoid whatever it is, summer camp, the birthday party, going to school, right? Lots of kids, you know, all of a sudden it's test day and they have this big stomach ache and they're crying and you're like, okay, you know what, you don't have to go to school today. I see that you're struggling really hard and you feel bad. Modifying routines, repeatedly checking homework. So, Mom, do you mind just quickly checking over my homework? Sure, no problem. Okay, can you just check it one more time? Just one more time because I changed something here and can you make sure it's really, really good? Falling asleep with them. And, you know, I know a lot of people here have teenagers, but, you know, there's a lot of parents who are still falling asleep with their teenagers, but their teenagers can't fall asleep independently without them. And it's very natural as a parent that you fall into this accommodation cycle because you want to get to bed too, right? Like, that's part of, you know, it's very hard. So I always say accommodations come from a place of love, but let's be honest, sure, they come from love, but they also come from I need to operate in my world. I need to get out the door. I need some sleep here, right? And we end up falling into these patterns.
What is modifying routines?
So modifying routines would be, so for example, I'm trying to think what I meant when I wrote that, but for example, let's say your child can't go to school without you. And so now you're going to work at 10 instead of 9 when you're supposed to be there.
Modifying my
Yes, so thank you. That's a very good clarification. Every single thing about this is about changing parent behavior because of anxiety. It's the accommodations or behaviors we do as parents that we fall into for good reason that happen to increase anxiety.
What about like the excessive reassurance versus like, you know, just like acknowledging what they're going through?
Oh, great question. So excessive reassurance, which I was about to, is a really big one, all right? So what's the difference between information providing and excessive reassurance? and validation, which is a separate thing, what you're saying, right? So acknowledging they're going through something hard, and we're going to talk about some language for this directly, is part of being a parent, validating their feelings, validating their concerns. Repeated reassurance is answering the exact same question 5 million times. Mom, I've got this really big thing tomorrow and I'm really, really nervous. Sweets, I hear that you're feeling real nervous about that. I got that, yeah. Do you think I'm going to be okay? No, you're going to be fine. Okay, phew, I feel better. 5 minutes later, are you sure I'm going to be okay? And then it's the same question over and over and over. And you fall into that pattern because it worked for a little bit. But they don't learn the skills themselves on how to deal with it. So, for teens, this is a big one, right? You're getting texts, phone calls, you're at work trying your day, and you're getting text after text, call after call after call. Mom, are you picking me up after, how am I getting home from school? You're getting these repeated texts, and you're answering them because you love your kid. And what else are you supposed to do, right? So there's my joke slide. Accommodations come from love, but they also come from desperation and trying to get out the door. And it works great in the moment. That's why we keep coming back to them. Okay, so if accommodations and escaping anxiety is not good, what builds resilience? What actually builds the resiliency of our kids and gives them the skills, right? And that's bravery. Right? Bravery is not about not being scared. It's not about that at all. We do not want our kids not being scared. We want them being brave, which means finding courage in the face of the hard things that happen in life. And so with anxiety or other situations, we want them to find the courage. And when I was thinking about this, just because this is my audience, I recently read Eli Sharabi's book, and I couldn't stop thinking about him and how was he able to be so resilient. And I think that's a really big thing about bravery, right? He wasn't not scared. He was having the same experience as other people, but somehow he's been able to be resilient. I'm sure he has a lot of things going on for him that he doesn't show the world, and he has a lot of grief, but yet there is resilience there. Oh, sure. I'm sorry. I said I wasn't going to walk around, and then I did walk around. Okay, sorry about that. Okay, any questions so far? How do we build bravery? So of course, all kids are different. Everyone's coming in with their own sort of set of how brave they are, but overall, it's something that can be practiced. It is a skill. And when you create a home where bravery is part of the culture, then you're building these skills in your kids. My kids never hear me say that I'm not scared. They hear me talk about my anxiety all the time. I was probably driving them a little bit nuts about coming to Houston because this is the first time they're staying alone and all of this, okay? So it's not that I am not modeling being not scared. I am modeling being scared and being brave and doing it anyway. And that's what I want parents to be able to do too. Make a family culture that it's like, oh, you're feeling really scared right now. I see that in you. Okay, that's really hard. What are we gonna do? What are we gonna do about it? Let's come together and make a plan. So yeah, it can be practiced. So bravery grows in homes where feelings are validated. To your point of the question, you want your children to feel that their feelings are valid, that there is good reason why they feel worried, scared, sad, angry, whatever it is. And it's okay to feel the whole range of human emotion. But we also want them to understand is that hard things are not put in our way just to be taken away. They're there as a challenge. I love what you said about the olives, right? It's what comes out of these hard situations. What comes? Beauty, growth, resilience. Avoidance is not the solution in homes where bravery is made as a family culture. And all effort is praised. Any trying is a good thing. You're trying your best, and that's wonderful, and we praise those efforts because small successes build more successes, and they take on this momentum of their own. And then that's how you make bravery a culture. Oh wait, that's not what I'm doing. Okay, so this work comes from probably the person I most respect in the world of child psychology, Eli Leibowitz from Yale University. He is just an amazing man.
What did he write the name of his book?
so the space program, but he has a book called Helping Your Child's Anxiety. So that was he first started with the actual manual he wrote, and then he translated it for parents into a beautiful book, and developed a beautiful program, which I run his program in Vancouver. And this work comes from him, and I just respect him so much. And he talks about support, right? How do you give your kids support while still not accommodating anxiety? So calm support is validating feelings. You want to try to stay calm. I guarantee you won't be calm, but you want to look calm. And again, this is a practice. You're practicing. And you want to communicate that you have the confidence that your child can cope with the hard thing. Then brave expectations are holding the boundaries, right? Reducing accommodations. Now, this doesn't mean pulling the rug out of your child's head and say, sorry, you know what? I've been sleeping with you for the last 14 years, but I'm never going to sleep with you again because I went to go see this talk and she said, don't do that anymore. Oh, no. That's not the answer. Dr. Annie said, that's not the solution. But you're reducing it gradually, letting them see that they have the ability to cope on their own. Encourage small steps. Dr. Leibowitz said something on one of his promotional videos that I hear in my head all the time. And what he said was, you are a mirror. As parents, you are a mirror. And children look to you to see themselves. And if what they see, the reflection, is somebody who is confident and willing to try things, that's what they'll believe about themselves. He said it way more eloquently than I am. But I think it is so powerful because when our kids look at us and they see that we're like, you know what, I know this is really hard and I know that you can do it, they're going to start to believe that about themselves. And it is just such a powerful tool. So this is the script. This is the other thing I love about it. I love when things are easy. There's a script. You just say this. Now my daughter's like, stop saying that to me. But she likes it. I know this is hard. And I know that you can handle it. I know that you feel really scared about going to the birthday party. And I know that you're going to be able to do it, right? So you're acknowledging their feelings and validating them, and at the same time communicating that you know they can cope. This way. So what does brave expectation sound like? We don't let anxiety decide. We take one small brave step. So maybe it is that your child's not, we'll go back to the sleeping example, not ready to sleep by themselves in the room, in the bed, without mom and dad there until they fall asleep or even all night. But maybe they are ready to have them sit not in the bed with them, but next to the bed while they fall asleep. Maybe that's the one brave step. And then maybe it's, a couple weeks of that, and then the next brave step is, you know what, I'm ready for you to sit at the door. And then a couple weeks after that, maybe it's I'm ready for you to sit on the other side of the door. And then it's, you know what, I'm going to come back every 10 minutes and check on you, right? And so that is one small brave step at a time, and it builds momentum. So limiting the accommodations, reducing the rescue, keeping up the support. So little challenge for everybody, that they can go home and think about one place that they've been accommodating anxiety in their home. Just one little thing, and think one little step you could do that would make them a little bit more independent in that area. And try to stay calm, which isn't perfect, and consistent with it. Just try one thing and see what happens, while giving up that support, always with the support.
Give them a warning in advance? Is this what we're going to start doing?
Yeah, I've been thinking a lot about how, it's hard for you to do X. And I know that, you are a really brave kid, and I've seen all the amazing brave things you've been able to do. And so starting tomorrow, you know what, I'm just going to do this instead of that, right? And I know that it's going to be hard, and I really feel that this is going to be a real big change that you're not going to want, and it's going to be scary. But I also know you can handle it. So it's small, very small, right? This isn't about changing the world tomorrow. It's about one little small step towards a goal. So here's some examples of accommodations that most parents end up falling into. Repeated reassurance, answer once, right? Just one time you need to say who's picking them up after school, right? Speaking for them, maybe you're standing beside them instead of speaking for them. avoiding the event. I can't go to that party. I just can't go. Everyone's going to be there and they're all going to laugh at me. And I heard that so-and-so had so-and-so over, blah, blah, blah. I'm just not going. No, you know what? You're going to go and I'm going to sit outside in the car and you can leave after 20 minutes, but it's your friend's birthday, right? So one small step towards it and then build from there. My falling asleep example, staying for 5 minutes, checking periodically, answering 100 calls and texts a day. This is a very, very frequent one. Setting to your kids, you know what, I'm at work and I can't be responsive all the time. And so we're going to set check-ins. They're going to be, and maybe it's 5 in the day at set times. Maybe it's that many that they need, and then reducing from there. Anxious parents will say to me, but what if something really bad happens and they really need to get a hold of me? And so I say, well, that might be true. And then you're going to check in, and then they'll, you know, at this time. Back in the day, our kids didn't have access to their parents, or we didn't have access to our parents the way that our kids have access to us. Okay, so tomorrow when I talk to the kids, I'm going to introduce some tools. And so the question is, if we're not accommodating, right, and we're not allowing avoidance, what are we doing? We need to give these kids some skills so that they're able to actually be brave. So what are the skills? The first skill, and one of my favorite one, is externalizing the anxiety. So anxiety is not your child, right? I have so many kids who walk into my office and say, oh, I can't do that, I'm anxious. I'm like, no, you're Josie. Anxiety is a feeling that you experience sometimes, right? I have lots of kids who is like, my kid is shy. No, your kid is not shy, your kid is Rosie, whatever. So we really want some distance between the experience of anxiety and the kid themselves. And so also the other thing that happens is, like, you know, we end up getting these families where everyone's like yelling at each other, or like, come on, you know, why aren't you able to do this today? You could do this last week. Why is this so hard, right? This isn't about the child, this is about something else. I talk about anxiety as like a bully, and it can be really bossy. And we try to name it, put some distance and separate it from the child themselves, and then coach it. Now, you can see I have a little funny little monster. I name my anxiety Bob. I always have. Bob's very loud. But some kids, depending on your child, they're going to be amenable to this in different ways. Little kids love the idea of drawing out a monster, a worry dragon, whatever. Teenagers, not so much. And so teenagers are more likely to say, okay, let's just call it anxiety. Or let's just call it, and sometimes the teenager will pick a colorful word for it, and I'm fine with that too. It depends on family culture, but you know, it's great. It doesn't really matter what they call it, as long as it's something separate that everyone can be a team to beat up against this, as opposed to it being the child that we're trying to change. Tool number 2. Teach them to boss it back. So the bully might be loud, but it doesn't get to be in charge. So you get them to say really powerful statements. You know, okay, I really want to go to this party, but I'm really nervous that everybody's going to laugh at me when I get there. Okay, so let's talk back to the anxiety. Go away. Stop ruining my fun. Again, depending on the family culture, I get them to say really colorful words. My favorite is, I worked with like the 6-year-old. They weren't allowed to say stupid in their house. And I said, well, guess what? Anxiety is stupid. And she called him like worry monster. He's stupid. And that's the only place you're allowed to say stupid. And I will tell your mom that you can say, he's stupid, go away. And that was so powerful to that child, right? So thinking about powerful words, and I have teenagers who will swear. And I think that if that's, you know, effective for them, great. So I'm doing this anyway, back off. So the idea is it's firm, it's brief, and it's repeated, right? So you are being the boss, not the bully. Tool number 3, helpful thinking. The power of thinking and what we think is so powerful. If you say, I'm scared, I'm scared, I'm scared, guess what? You're going to be scared. And that's that triangle, you know? And so I'm flying here and I'm thinking to myself, okay, you know, all these people are going to hear me and they flew me out. And what if it's not good enough? And blah, blah, blah. No, right? I can do this. I've given millions of talks. Just because it's a different location doesn't mean it's any different, right? The power of our thoughts can really be important. So I can do this. I've done hard things before. I love this one. This is a gift to my future self. I find that the teenagers really like that one as well. So it's coaching, coping-focused self-talk. Okay, so a lot of people have kids that are doing a lot of what ifs, but Mom, but what if this happens? And some of these what ifs in our day and age are quite reasonable and quite scary, given everything going on in the world. Well, what if my son's supposed to be going to Israel in 2 weeks? And he said, what if I get stuck there? I said, yeah, that's a very, very scary thought. And you know what? I'm really afraid of that too, right? I'm actually supposed to meet him afterwards, but let's look for the evidence, right? What do we know? Okay, well, what are the facts? And so what is most likely to happen? And if this happens, what would you do? And the idea here is you are guiding the conversation. You're not giving the answers. Because what we're doing with detective thinking is we're teaching children how to be active problem solvers. You're asking the questions, they're giving the answers, as opposed to you saying, you know what, sweetie, it's probably going to be fine. Usually there's flights. I can always get you an LL flight back because they always seem to fly. And, I'm asking him these questions. Okay, so what would you do if you got stuck there? Well, I have a lot of friends. Okay, so could you go and live with one of them? Well, yeah, that's a great idea. Maybe I'll just move in with them until it's safe for me to come home, right? So getting them to do the problem solving. So anxiety predicts, right? Often wrongly. Detectives investigate. Let's really think through this problem. Any questions about any of this?
I kind of do.
Yes.
So what if you're, not that he's not smart, but what if your son, or in this case, doesn't know how to think out of the box and say, oh, I can go stay with my friends, and they're just stuck? So
Socratic questioning, right? You're guiding the conversation. You keep asking those questions until you get him where they want to go, right? So all right, so what would happen if they canceled the flight home? Well, I'd be stuck in Israel. It's a funny example because he actually doesn't even think he's going to Israel because he's had 5 trips canceled. Now it's never been, but that's a different, I know. But good example anyway. The flight got canceled. What would happen? Well, I'd be stuck there. Okay, and then what would happen? Well, I wouldn't be able to come home and I'm graduating from high school and blah, 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 blah. Okay, well, what could you do? I don't know what I could do, Mom. That's why I'm asking you. Okay, but let's think of some possibilities. Like, what would you do if you were stuck somewhere? Well, I would see if I know. So you just keep getting them where they're going, right? And maybe at the beginning, maybe you're doing a lot of scaffolding, right? Especially when they're younger, you're really guiding those conversations. But they're still being the active problem solver. They're still the ones coming up with the answer. And as time progresses and they learn, they're going to be able to do it more automatically without your support as you pull that scaffolding away. Okay, I always say if I could only have one tool in my psychologist's toolbox, it's this one. This is my favorite tool. The truth is, the only way to overcome fears is by facing them. And if we never do the hard thing, we never learn that it's okay to go down the slide, pet the dog, go on vacation, go away to sleepaway camp, fall asleep independently, write tests, any of the things. And so avoidance trains anxiety, but brave reps train bravery. And so one of the things I want to talk about with the teens is, they know a lot about reps, right, from the gym or whatever. The more you repeat something, the easier it gets. So confidence follows courage, right? You're not going to all of a sudden feel okay to do the hard thing. You're going to do the hard thing first, and then you're going to feel better. And that's back to that triangle. You change the behavior, and then the feelings follow. So you want to start small, right? I always say, no one can give me $2 million to go on the hardest roller coaster in the world. It doesn't matter how much money, I'm just not going to do it. So you want to start small and build up from there. Repeat, you're going to stay longer, level it up, make it harder as you go. Now this is the key, right? You want to stay until the anxiety drops. And one of the things that I teach kids, and parents for that matter, is that anxiety always goes down on its own. Always. It feels like 1,000,000 hours, but it actually is not. And usually it's about 20 minutes of high anxiety before it starts to decrease. Now that peak can be different and it can go down slower, right? But the more you practice, the faster it goes down, the less time you spend in that anxious state. But you want to make sure that you're not leaving the situation at the peak, because then your brain has learned, when I avoid and escape things that are hard, then I feel better. And that's not what we want them to learn. We want them to learn, when I do hard things, I feel really, really horrible and it's really scary. And if I stay in them long enough, I get used to them. It's not as bad. Mm-hmm.
So do you mean the anxiety of when they're doing something?
Yes.
Or what about the anticipatory anxiety?
Great question. So both.
So let's say she has a hard time going to school.
Yes.
Something happened socially, academically, whatever, she doesn't want to go to school.
Yes.
So her anxiety is really the pre
Yes.
of the action.
Right. So
So
going to school is what we're talking about then.
Okay.
Right? And so maybe it's that, I hear that you're really having a hard time going at school, and I get it, right? Like, that situation was really horrible, and anybody would have felt really, really embarrassed, whatever, in that moment. But I know that you can handle the hard things, and so tomorrow you're going to go to school for just first block, and I'm going to be there to pick you up just after first block. Right? So anybody can do anything for the 40 minutes of first block, and then I'll be there to pick you up. All right? So what have you done in that situation? Right? You're not allowing escape because you've set the boundary. This is how long you're going to go for it. Now, maybe that's too much. For some kids, going for first block, if they've been out of school for a while, that's too big a step. So maybe it's like, you're going to go when after all the kids have left, and we're just going to go talk to your teacher. We're just going to step foot back in. Maybe that's the step. It doesn't matter what the step is. It just has to be one step towards the direction. And then not allowing the whole feel of anxiety to go down before moving on to the next one. So what does a brave ladder look like? So this was one for speaking in class. Some kids really don't like to speak in class. Maybe it's practicing out loud at home, asking a question after class, answering once in class, or giving a short presentation. So this is just for illustrative. There's only 4 steps, but often there could be like 10 steps. It doesn't really matter as long as you just are going in the right way. So I was really excited that I got to add some Jewishness into this, because I'm definitely not an expert in this area, but Judaism is so aligned with cognitive behavioral therapy, which is the kind of way that I practice, because you can find endless examples of how God commands us to act. Right? It's about action. Everything we do is our action. And we're not commanded to feel not to be fearless. We're commanded to act with courage. And so I just thought I would throw in a little Judaism, even though I'm not the one to be doing it necessarily, and I can feel myself getting red, but I still love it. Okay, so when to seek professional help. If anxiety is interfering with daily functioning, if avoidance is expanding over time, the problem's getting worse. It's not just time limited. If your child's in significant distress, and for that matter, if you're in significant distress, really, you can get help with this. If you feel stuck or unsure how to move forward, and this is where I step on my soapbox. So cognitive behavioral therapy, we have the best evidence that this is the therapy that works the best for child and adult anxiety problems. But I talk about in all my talks about the dry cleaning model of therapy. That's the model you don't want to do, where you go to therapy and you drop off your child, you go run some errands, you come back and you pick them up, and you think they're going to be all shiny and new and fixed, right? Your therapist is not coming home with you. I have the easy job. Parents have the hard job. They're the ones who are doing the day in and day out. And so you should be intimately involved in the therapeutic process. And depending on the age of your child, that might look different. If you have a 16, 17-year-old, maybe you're just in at the beginning and in the end, right? But you're still involved to know, okay, what are we working on this week and how can I support you?
How does that look like, though? What does that look like with a therapist? Meaning, how do you stay involved?
As the parent? Mm-hmm. Give me a little bit more an example.
Meaning, if your child's in therapy once a week, and then
there should be check-ins with you.
like once a month?
So my practice is check-ins each time. I have a 20-year-old on my caseload. It's the old, I don't usually see kids, but I've been supporting her for so long. And even with the 20-year-old, I'm pulling the parents in for 5 minutes at the beginning, 5 minutes at the end. But the goal of that is different, because now it's not involving them, it's getting them uninvolved. right? Now it's okay. So I don't want you driving her to and from these appointments anymore. She knows how to take the bus. We've been working with the bus. And every time that you drive, when she feels anxious, she's learning that she can't cope with these hard things. And this child's trying to move out of the house and become independent and go to university, right? If the parent wasn't involved.
With the child?
Oh, yeah.
When you meet with the
Oh,
parent,
yeah.
the child?
100%, full transparency. And then I'll tell them to tell on each other.
Are you talking about PCIT?
Am I talking about PCIT?
No, I'm saying how, like with PCIT therapy, with parents and child.
That PCIT therapy is more for kids under 6.
Okay.
Yeah, or some of the research is up to 8, 9. But yeah, no, that's a very different therapy for sure. Yeah. Yeah, but still, like if I didn't have those parents involved in the therapy, I wouldn't know that we spent a whole session learning and getting brave to take the bus independently, and then that parent all week long was driving them when they were supposed to be learning how to be independent, right? And so you want to be involved, knowing what are we working on and how can I help.
What do you say would be the difference between, let's say, CBT for an individual with parent involvement versus like a family therapy session when the entire family works to accommodate or is affected by the anxiety?
Well, like families, like it depends on like a family systems model would be would be different, right? Well, I mean, it's similar for sure, but you're working on communication patterns. You're working on a lot of things with the whole family present. This is much more of a skills-based model. That's much more process-oriented and valuable.
Right now, I'm just wondering if the whole family gets like, kind of pulled into the anxiety.
They do. Yeah, 100%. And so sometimes I will have to bring siblings in too, because I have siblings who are like rescuing their sibling and doing everything, the hard things all for them and fixing all the problems so that mom doesn't get upset for the 20th time when kid couldn't, put on their shoes because they have OCD. And so the sibling is doing the shoes up when no one's looking so that he doesn't have to touch the germy shoes so they can get out the door on time. Well, that sibling needs to be involved in the process. And so, I set up a lot of reward systems, and the sibling gets a reward system too, right? It gets rewarded for not accommodating and being a brave helper to their sibling, which means not jumping in. Okay, so what I was just going to say is a little challenge for the week is just think what's one brave step your child can take. You don't have to share. And then what's one brave step you as a parent can take? Because it's hard for us. It really is. The pull to rescue our children is huge. And it's there for good reason, but sometimes it backfires. So what's one brave step you can take as a parent? I'm taking my brave step by letting my kids stay alone tonight for the first time. So that's my brave step as a parent. I almost had somebody come and stay with them because I'm like, oh, I don't think they can cope. They're too young. They really shouldn't be sleeping alone. But my son's going off to university, so one night. So that's my brave step of the day. Thank you. So the goal is not to remove stress and anxiety. We don't want to remove all the stress and anxiety because, as we all know, it just keeps on coming. But we want to raise the kids who can handle it. And the bravery can be your family culture too. And that's it. And I'm happy to take any questions.
I have a question about, I guess, genetic anxiety.
Yes.
How do you?
I'm joking.
Apples and trees all the time.
Generational anxiety?
Generational.
Well, there's also
anxiety,
that too.
Epigenetics?
So, I mean, like,
Generational trauma?
it's not like anxiety, like, oh, I can't go into this party, or it's not like that. It's like
Worry.
something ominous is going to happen.
Yes.
How do you deal with that?
100%. So here's the thing. Us Jews, we have it, right? They found it. They found it on our genes, right? They actually found it. Then we also have experiences historically that have created more of it. Something ominous is always going to happen. We don't have to look so far in our history to see something bad did happen and continues to happen daily, right? So where that comes in is how do we learn to tolerate uncertainty? Because most of that anxiety comes down to the fact that we just don't know what's going to happen. We, like, again, going back to like, my son's going to fly off to Israel. His father's not super happy about it, but as far as I'm concerned, if the plane's going, he's on it. Am I worried about it? Oh yeah. Am I going to have some sleepless nights when he's there without me? Yeah, right? Am I going to worry something bad will happen? Of course, right? But we have to learn how to tolerate uncertainty, which is also a learned skill. And it's hard, and it takes practice. And us Jews, we have a leg down. We don't do it well.
But is there like a type of therapy or something that can address those sort of genetic?
Yep. CBT. It's tolerating uncertainty, right? Sitting with those really, really difficult feelings, which they are, and not doing anything to make them go away. Right? And it's really hard. And the other thing is, sort of to your question, is it actually doesn't matter where it's come from. Whether it's genetics, whether it's learnt, the skills are all the same, right? They're all going to build resilience, and maybe they're going to be harder for some, right? But it doesn't mean that they can't be taught, practiced, and learned. And some days are better than others, right? You might have had less sleep. Something really bad might have happened recently, right? So. Yeah, and kindness to yourself. I mean, that's the other thing. You know, self-compassion, kindness, self-care, those things are thrown out like they're like, oh yeah, and do some self-care. But it's actually really true, because you can't show up for your kids if you're not taking care of yourself, whether that be, you know, walking every day, making sure you get your steps in, fresh air. You guys are so lucky here in Texas because you can just go outside. Yeah, but you have a bit of Vancouver in the heart of February, where it's 20 days. All right.
Okay.
Okay.
So any questions and answers? Or any? Yeah.
What about children who are neurodivergent, dyslexia and ADHD and autism, and how anxiety is much more prevalent in those children, and we want to support them, but we also don't want to you want to create accommodations for them. And does accommodations become too much?
Thank you for asking that. It's a very important question, because accommodations in that context means something a little different, right? So when we're thinking about it, we're thinking about, are these things we're putting into place that gets them closer to their goals, or are these things that we're putting in place to take them farther away from their goals? So child with autism, right? You give them some earplugs so that they can go to school, right? That's an accommodation, but that gets them closer to their goal of being able to participate with their friends, right? These skills work with children with autism, with ADHD, with all those things, but they have to be done at a different pace. They have to be done more creatively, more attuned to what the child's presenting with. So, you know, kids with autism, they have special interests. It's wonderful. Do it with their special interests. Make a reward system with their, you know, give them analogies with what is their passion. So, yeah, but the same principles, right?
Mm-hmm. Also, I would say to try to find a provider that has a specialty in it or has advanced information with it, because
Yes.
all providers basically, I mean, we know how to do CBT and, you know, kind of that specialty, but working with the neurodivergent population, unfortunately, the resource is not there yet, right? We're not as well researched in neurodivergence as we are in regular anxiety disorders, typical anxiety disorders, and it's good to find a provider that can help you on both of those scales.
Mm-hmm.
I read somewhere, I don't know where, maybe I'm misquoting, but I think that anxiety can mask undiagnosed ADD. Is there a correlation between it? Maybe it was some sort of correlation between anxiety and ADD.
So the anxiety is masking it, so that once the anxiety goes away.
Maybe it's the ADD is not diagnosed, so therefore the anxiety.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. So that's, you know, that's a very good point. So whenever you go see someone, you want to make sure they're doing a good diagnostic assessment. There's lots of kids who have quite significant ADHD, and then, you know, one of the reasons they're so anxious is because they're missing everything, right? Is that what you mean?
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay.
What about anxiety with OCD?
One of my favorite topics.
Right, okay, you go for it.
Yeah.
Well, OCD is an anxiety disorder.
Right, but I'm
It's
saying,
one of
is
the-
it CBT would do the same thing with that?
Yes, so we do it a little bit differently. We do something called exposure and response prevention. So they're exposed to the trigger, the thing that makes them scared, sort of like this, right? And then we prevent them from doing the compulsion that's bringing that relief. So it really is the same kind of thing, but they do it one small step at a time. Yeah.
What did you call it?
Exposure and response prevention, ERP. So if you look for a provider in that for OCD, you want to make sure that they do ERPs, and you can even see if they've been trained by the International OCD Foundation.
There's actually, in Houston, there's an OCD center.
Oh, yes.
Yes, I told you about it, right? Yeah.
Did you?
Yeah.
the Heights.
Dr. Eric Storch.
Eric is
He
here,
runs it.
right?
Eric Storch.
Yeah,
And
he's-
him and Ellie Lubitz work together as
Yes.
well. Yeah.
Yeah.
With
Need
OCD
a
stuff.
direct contact that has someone.
Oh, awesome.
Contact for you.
Yeah. So they're specialized specifically in
He used to be
OCD.
in Florida, Eric, yeah.
Yeah, he's here now. Living in this neighborhood.
No way.
Yeah.
I think I still have his phone number from a conference I went to like 20 years ago.
How does EMDR? Oh, interesting reaction.
Right, did you
No?
see that reaction?
It was a deep breath.
It was, yeah.
EMDR is wonderful, except it's wonderful for the reasons that, like the eye movements, I think don't have much to do with it. But I think if it makes it easier for people to do it, then that's great. Because what EMDR is doing is in small, manageable steps, exposing people to the hard thing, whether it be the hard experience that they've had, right? You don't want to flood somebody who's had a trauma. And so EMDR gives them something to sort of hold on to. The dismantling studies where they pull apart like why something's working, I mean, EMDR in itself has amazing research behind it. But when you start to pull apart what works, it's the exposure piece.
So the CBT would do the same thing?
It is pretty much a form of CBT as EMDR, except that they have this thing where you're like moving your eyes and they think that's why it works.
What is EMDR?
Eye movement desensitization, rapid.
Eye movement map, yeah.
EM.
EMDR. Desensitization processing.
Response,
Yeah, response.
something.
Basically, when you're out during the day and you experience a traumatic experience, so generally a person, when you sleep at night, you have rapid eye movement. The
Yeah.
rapid eye movement kind of deflates those experiences in your mind so you can cope on the day-to-day life. But sometimes you have a traumatic experience that it won't deflate at night. And the way it was explained to me, it's like there's a balloon that's in your brain taking space, and it's creating a lot of issues. So an EMDR therapist will mimic your rapid eye movement and talk you through the trauma so that you could deflate that trauma so you can kind of like balance your mind. Is that a good explanation?
That's pretty good, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, EMDR, but EMDR is also specifically for trauma, right? Whereas CBT could be used for anxiety,
Yeah.
which is not necessarily trauma related.
Exactly.
Right? It could
Yeah.
be genetics, it can be environmental, it could be things that happen to them, but not specific to trauma.
Yeah.
Unless anxiety is trauma induced.
Yes.
Even if somebody experiences a trauma, right? If, let's say, 10 people experience the same trauma,
This is a very important.
not all 10 people are going to go on to having post-traumatic stress disorder or meeting the clinical diagnosis for that. You know what percentage of the people will? Meeting the clinical diagnosis for post-traumatic stress disorder after the same trauma, we're all in the same room, 3. The research shows that 1/3, okay, so 33%. The other 33% need little intervention, and then the other 33%, let's say the three have, let's say, the criteria to fit the diagnosis of PTSD. But somehow society has it wrong, that thinking that if we all experience a trauma together,
We're all gonna be
all 10
traumatized.
of us are going to be traumatized for life, and we're going to meet the diagnostic criteria for post-traumatic stress disorder.
And what-
It's not the case.
What you're saying is so important because there's this population who experience post-traumatic growth.
Yes.
And if we can figure out what it is about people who are resilient to these terrible, terrible things and are able to integrate and grow. I mean, you look at historically like Frankl, and you look at, I mean, he had really great ideas on what it was, right? Having meaning. And then you look at more recently, you know, Eli Sharabi as one and others as well. You know, they've had post-traumatic growth. Right? With the horrible thing, do we want to have happened to them? No. But they were able to be resilient in the face of adversity. And so, you know, I think that's really important that not all, when something bad happens, not everybody is traumatized. It's important.
Any other questions?
Yeah, what's the difference between CBT and DBT?
Why don't you two want to take this one?
Well, they're two different modalities
Yeah.
of therapy, like completely different modalities of therapy. Like cognitive behavioral therapy, and the other one is called dialectical behavioral therapy. So the way that you approach it is very different. You know, creating a life with dialectical, it means the reality is what you're teaching is that two things could be true at the same time, right? For example, I could feel scared and happy at the same time, right? So you're working with the dialectical thinking, and cognitive behavioral therapy is really just about changing your thoughts and your feelings, like doing that cognitive triangle,
And they're for different problems.
right?
And so
And
often,
different diagnosis.
right. So sometimes I will see kids, because I treat a lot of OCD, who have no ability to tolerate distress at all. And I'll send them for DBT first before they can come and do, because they have no distress tolerance. So they're both very effective.
What happens when the child doesn't want to use the techniques that were taught?
Eli Leibowitz.
Okay.
So his whole program is based on the fact that you don't need the child to do anything. You actually can make long-lasting changes in your child's anxiety by changing only your behavior, period. Because if, let's say the bed example, if you say, well, this is the way it is from now on, I'm going to be sitting next to you, not in bed with you. Your child, now, if you're going to, like, it's not easy, very hard. But we can make, because then the child learns, oh, wait a second, I was able to cope with that. I never thought I could.
I got up to chapter 3 and then I put the book away. So now I'll take it out again.
Well, I actually recommend if you can find a provider here who's running groups,
Space group.
a space group,
Do you? Yeah.
it is so good.
However, I mean, it's so. Ellie Lewis was a neighbor of mine in New Haven. We had him at our Travis table a couple times.
Oh, really?
Yes.
Oh,
Yeah,
I'm
yeah,
so
yeah.
jealous. I just want to sit down in a room with him and like listen to him.
He's Israeli, by the way, so that's all. Space is for parents, and parents, like what Annie's saying is that parents have to do the bulk of the work. So you really have to be ready as a parent to allow, and I can tell you as a parent and as a therapist, it is very, very uncomfortable to sit with people that are uncomfortable. And what we want to try to do is fix it. So unless we're ready to really sit back and like strap on our seatbelts and be uncomfortable in an uncomfortable situation, that's what space is all about, right?
And that's why I think a group is so great, because you can get the book and it's like, you want me to do what? Like, I'm just gonna, like, do you know what my house is gonna look like? I'm gonna be late for work. Like, we're not gonna get out the door if I don't do X, Y, and Z. Or we're gonna be up all night and I have to function the next day. But when you have the support of other parents going through it and a therapist, you're, and to figure out, like, what is one little step I can do? One little that is doable.
Yeah. Isn't it also not for kids, not for parents whose kids are currently seeing a therapist?
Oh, I've never heard that.
Okay, could be I'm incorrect with that.
Oh, I don't know about that.
Why? Because then they're getting mixed messages, possibly?
I believe so.
Well, if they're not seeing a space-aligned therapist, I would agree with that.
Okay, it could be.
Yeah.
Is space a book?
Space is,
Here, I'll give you, it's a program, but there's a book.
stands for something.
I have the name of the exact book, hold on.
He's going to teach you tools. the
He
same
did,
way a therapist is
he
gonna
did a
teach
talk
you
for the
tools.
Wellness Institute.
Yeah, he did. Yeah.
Oh, we do.
We just have to be able to use them.
It's
We need
it's
to be brave
hard,
ourselves
that's
to be able to
right.
use them.
Can you use the tools without the kid being in therapy?
Yeah.
Yes.
Same
Yeah.
results?
Yes.
Well, the
That's what's so
thing is-
powerful about his program, is that he finds lasting changes in child anxiety when the child doesn't do a thing.
And this is, you said, Dr. Leibowitz?
Dr. Leibowitz, his book is,
Ellie?
I think I have the recording.
the book is called Breaking Free of Child Anxiety and OCD.
Breaking of
Yeah.
Any more questions?
Yeah, would that be a book that a teenager would read or just a parent?
It's really parent-oriented. Yeah.
found that, finding books for children on their level is helpful. Like very, very helpful, like OCD for Dummies or stuff like that. Many times with mental health conditions, kids feel very, very alone.
Yes.
And once you kind of normalize that other people are like that out there as well, they feel less alone and kind of just sheds a little bit of light into the darkness that they're feeling. So definitely books, but their level of book. Yeah.
I haven't found a lot of good ones. I might need to get your list
On OCD.
for the teens, for the, yeah. But the Dawn Hubner series, DAWN, for younger kids is fabulous. Those What to Do series, what to do when your brain gets stuck, when you dread your bed, those books. Dawn, DAWN, Hubner, HUE. But they are for, I would say, sort of like 8 to 12.
How do you spell Hubner?
HUEBNER. It's the What to Do when tempers flare. She has a whole series.
Any other questions? Comments?
Well, I'd like to thank you on behalf of our wonderful Southern hospitality community.
Thank you for having
I'm
me.
gonna say in Texas, shalom, y'all.
I'll practice. Shalom, y'all.